Hey guys, this is a viewer requested video, actually a couple of viewers requested, specifically about boat insurance. And you know, I enjoy doing the fishing videos, but I really enjoy doing these videos where I learn something, whether it's about fishing or about boats or about something else. So I hope you guys enjoy this. It's a two-parter. We ramble a little bit in this first video, I'll admit, but we kind of go down some rabbit holes. But the second video, we get kind of to the guts of what I was worried about, which is what's fishing and, you know, what's fishing equipment, what's personal equipment, all those things, what's attached, what's not attached, how you cover that stuff. So hope you enjoy this first one, and I'll have part 2 up. This will be Tuesday. I'm hoping to fish Hubbard evening tournament tomorrow night, Tuesday night. So if that's the case, I'll get that footage up Thursday. So I'll either have part 2 of this up Thursday or part 2 of this up next Tuesday, one of the two. Thanks guys, here we go. Hey guys, Ken Smith Fishing, here with Martin Gill. So Martin is, and we're sitting really close together, but we've got beer, so that's okay. Martin is a professional property casualty insurance guy. So I've had, in the last 2 months, probably a dozen different guys say, hey, I don't understand my boat insurance. And so we had a mutual friend who introduced us, who said, because I felt the same way. I've had the same person, a very close family member, manage my boat insurance for a long time, and I didn't know what I had. I was also a little bit afraid some of my stuff wasn't covered. So I reached out to Martin. He agreed if I would buy him beer, he would talk me through this. and let me go on record right here to say, and this is no knock on insurance guys. And by the way, the really scary part is I'm actually licensed to sell this, and I wouldn't even know how to fill out an application. But like you looked at my insurance, and my premium was what, $695 a year?
Yeah,
$659. So I asked Martin, I said, what would you make on that? And you said maybe
10 to 15% at the most, you know, so $75, $80, you know, plus overhead, you know, that we got to take out.
So just printing this out costs $2. So yeah. This is not a way for a guy to make a living in the insurance business, which is probably why when you call your guy and say, I need boat insurance, they just kind of say, okay, here you got boat insurance. They say, what's the value? What's the speed of the boat? And bam, you're done. But there's a lot of nuance to this, right?
There is. There's a lot of things that you need to be aware of. You know, when we look at boat insurance, it's something that is very high stakes. You know, you need to get it right. If you don't get it right and you have a loss, you're going to regret it.
Yeah.
All right. And you know, and it's not something you do very frequently. So it's not something that you're good at. You know, if you're not doing it all the time, you're just not good at it. And maybe your agent, you know, isn't that good at it either. But you know, you as the fisherman and you as the boater, I mean, you know what's on your boat and you know what matters to you.
Well, and one thing that's kind of freaked me out. So Martin printed mine out, and then he printed his out. So mine is with Travelers, and yours is with Progressive. Mm-hmm. And every carrier treats everything differently, right? Yeah. What's personal property? What's permanently affixed fishing equipment? What is fishing equipment? I was kind of blown away that everything's different in all these different policies.
Yeah, I mean, they all try to do the same thing, but they all have their way of doing it. You know, there are a few main pieces that we'll go through that are the big things. You know, protecting you for liability. You know, that's the number one, right? And then number two, protecting your boat and those things that you have installed on it or carrying on it. You know, and even protecting those things that other people have brought on your boat. You know, your buddy who brings $5,000 worth of fishing rods on the trip, and then your boat sinks. You know.
Well, and by the way, something I should also say. So Martin is pretty recent to tournament fishing.
Yeah.
And he is captaining his son's high school team.
That's right.
So I think you've kind of looked at this when suddenly you're putting somebody else's child in your boat. The risk manager in you kind of jumps out, right?
For sure. You want to make sure you've got an umbrella. You want to make sure you're buying the right limits on liability. You want to understand what happens if you get hit by somebody who doesn't have insurance. You know, a lot of things can go wrong on the water. We all do our best to make sure that they don't, but, you know, it happens.
Look, we've had a friend get hurt at Cedar Creek this spring. There was an accident at the FLW tournament at Rayburn that did not get talked about where a boat T-boned another boat. I mean, it happens almost probably every weekend somewhere in the country.
Yeah.
There's a boating accident.
Yeah.
You know, there were the high schoolers in Kentucky that unfortunately died when the boat went over the dam. And I saw subsequent to that where the family of the young man who was killed sued the family of the boating captain,
yeah.
right?
And
so this crap happens. So what I wanted to do was go through traps we don't know about, understanding coverage, understanding liability, understanding how to bump that liability up, which I think makes sense because it's so damn cheap.
Yeah.
And you did that kind of going through my policy. Okay. So kind of walk us through that.
Let's start there, and let's start with liability, because if you're watching this, if you're into tournament fishing, you're going to be required to keep that proof of liability insurance on your boat. Most tournaments are requiring $300,000 in liability. What does that mean? It doesn't cover your boat. That's covering your liability to others. When we talk about your liability, we're talking about bodily injury and property damage that you cause to other people, in the course of boating. So, just like on the roads with a car, if you run into someone and it was your fault, there are navigation rules, and if you are found guilty of breaking that, which caused the accident, then the court determines that you're at fault and you can be found liable. And so that's when that liability comes into play. And
let me just say, it's not just that. If you and I are fishing together and we run into a flock of geese and you get hurt, my fault, not my fault, who knows, but somehow you get tossed out of the boat, you're hurt, your insurance company. So by the way, I should talk about this. So you guys know I had my hip replaced in October. And Blue Cross, when they saw that I was going through PT, we talked about this.
Yeah.
They started sending me these surveys, and they're like, we see you're going to physical therapy due to an injury. Did it happen on somebody else's property? Was it somebody else's fault? Blue Cross was immediately looking for a way to shift that liability off of Blue Cross onto another party. If I hurt you, whether you want them to or not, your insurance company is going to sue me personally.
They're going to try to recover that cost.
They're going to recover it through me personally or through my insurance.
Correct.
So it doesn't matter who it is. I mean, it could be your brother. But if your brother his insurance is going to come after you and your insurance to get covered.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take long. So my liability was what?
Your liability is at $500,000, which is generally the maximum we see and what we always recommend. We always recommend it because, like you said, it's so cheap to buy the 500 over 300.
So by the way, $500,000 liability on my policy is $43 a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you said probably 300 would be $37.
Yeah. I mean, it's a marginal difference for that extra $200,000, right?
And then we've talked about this. I have an umbrella on top of that. Explain what an umbrella is and kind of cost on something like that.
Sure. So if you have an umbrella, that's extra liability limits. That is limits for you. And the concept, the idea of an umbrella is that it covers over things, right? So you have a pickup truck that pulls your boat, you have a house, and you have a boat, let's say. So each underlying policy that you have has liability limits. So your boat has $500,000 in liability on it. Let's say your car has $500,000 in liability on it, and your home has $500,000 liability on it. If you get sued for an accident that occurs while you're driving, while you're at your home, or while you're on your boat, and the judgment that results from that suit is greater than $500,000, that's when an umbrella would be triggered. And so that umbrella gives you extra coverage if those limits aren't enough to cover a loss that you're found liable for. And it goes over your boat, it goes over your autos, it goes over your Polaris, but the big thing is it doesn't automatically go over that stuff. And so you need to check with your agent because you have to have minimum limits in order to attach to that umbrella. So if you've got an umbrella that has minimum requirements of $300,000 on it to attach, that means they're going to start paying, when your primary insurance runs out. So if you have 300 or 500, they're not going to start paying until that limit's gone. But if you buy $100,000 in limits and you buy an umbrella and you were supposed to have 3 in order to attach, there's a $200,000 gap there.
They're going to hit you.
You're going to pay that.
Ouch. Okay.
And so that's where your agent or you in your diligence need to make sure they attach.
Is there any reason somebody shouldn't have an umbrella policy?
I mean, if you don't have any assets really, and you're 24, 25 years old.
You're going to get sued and you could have a suit sitting against you for the rest of your damn life.
I generally see people add them as they've become a little more mature in life and they own more things, right?
Trying to protect stuff.
It's not very expensive.
Right, so
it's a little more expensive if you are a 25-year-old single male. Yeah, the risk profile might be a little bit higher, but still we're talking $300-400 a year. as you are, an adult with a couple, cars and a house, your first million in good credit
history. Yeah.
Your first
By the way,
$1
so
million.
guys, on all of this stuff, you don't know this, but on life insurance, on homeowners insurance, on boat insurance, on car insurance, credit history and
payment history, driving record
has a big deal.
I mean, how are you late paying your insurance bill? It goes into what's called your insurance scores, and different carriers rate those things more heavily. So every carrier's got an algorithm for what the rate and the premium ends up being at the end. And if you have missed payments with some carriers, it's a very heavy mark against you. Where other carriers don't care about that; they only care about your credit score and your education. It's different things. But just know that you can certainly ding yourself up with bad credit, and that may be one of the reasons why your insurance is more expensive. Hey, my buddy's insurance is $600 and mine's $900. Why? Well, maybe you had some bad credit issues.
I think I heard you say there that an umbrella policy's $300 or less.
$300 is it can be $200, it can be $400. For the first million, right? Yeah. You can add other things to it. You can add additional uninsured motorists, which we'll talk about. Which will run the cost up a little bit, but. Clients of mine that have significant assets, 10, 20, $30 million in assets, who are buying a $10 million umbrella, a $20 million umbrella, those are $1,500, $1,600, right? So it's a very infrequently used policy. It's a high severity, low frequency loss, right? So something that's very severe that doesn't happen very often. So a lot of people buy umbrellas. Most people never need them. You really hope you never do, and they're inexpensive.
But if a guy's sitting here, because I have some of these guys, I mean, a lot of the guys that watch my videos, they own a boat, but they might also own a party boat, or they might own a muscle boat. You got 6, 8, 10 people on your boat, especially one that run 140 miles an hour.
Yeah,
damn sure better have some.
Definitely. And teens. So I have a teenager who's just starting to drive. One of the first things I did was add another $1 million to my umbrella. Because it's not just me. It's, that teenager who's out there, and that teenager who's out there with his friends and whose parents I don't know. So think about that as well. Next.
Okay, so as you guys can tell, I've chopped this up a little bit because questions keep coming to my head, and Martin's like, well, that's a good question. Let's talk about it. So the question became, if your son's driving, Wilson's driving your boat, right? How old is he?
He's 15.
Okay. Yeah. So in Texas you have to have
you have a boating certificate. He's been through the course and he's got that. So he is legally allowed to drive the boat.
Okay.
Right?
Under your supervision.
Or by himself.
Okay.
Or by himself and go out by himself if he's got that certificate, right? And the insurance, my Progressive policy covers relatives.
By the way, so nice asterisk there, right? Make sure your coverage does this.
Yeah, make sure that you understand, that what the definition of a relative is. Is your child covered? Ask your agent. Be sure about that. Who's driving the boat. And then anyone with your permission to drive the boat. It's like driving a car, right? If someone steals your boat or steals your car and goes and crashes into someone, you shouldn't be at fault for that, right? But if you throw the keys to the boat to your buddy and say, yeah, you can use it for the weekend, the insurance goes with the boat as long as he has your permission to use the boat. In general, that's the way it works. Now, if he has his own boating insurance, could there be an argument, or could he take responsibility and potentially put it on his own boating insurance for the way it covers you when you operate other people's boats? Yes, but in general, you can be sure that if you have the insurance, just like a car, you can insure your car and lend it to somebody else.
Okay. All right, so by the way, and I've got one question that's kind of a curveball to you, and I know you know the answer to this. So every time I've ever insured a boat, one of the questions is, how fast is your boat?
Yeah.
And every boat I've ever owned goes 55 to 59 miles an hour. Bass Cat guys, 55 to 59 miles an hour. And you said they're getting away from that. They're looking to a formula now, right?
And
by the way, is that the proper answer?
Every boat does a different speed.
I love that you just became an insurance guy.
But all you read on these boards all day long is, well, if I put my jack plate up another half an inch, I can get to 83 miles an hour. So what have I seen happen with speeds on boats? A couple things. I had a client with Chubb who bought a bass boat, and it was going to do over 70 miles an hour. And Chubb has been a great insurer for boats. They're really good at it, the Nautiques and these kind of things. But when we went to add that boat, they were like, we'll do it, but he's the only driver. So that whole thing about the kid driving or any permissive use, thrown out. So what we do, we had to switch to progressive, where they were willing to accept the speed that the boat was going to take, going to produce, and they didn't put those restrictions on. So that's a big thing. You can call your agent and say, hey, add this boat. Well, if you tell them it goes 79 miles an hour, because it does, then you could have an issue sometimes.
Okay.
But, what number to put in there? I mean, do your best to put the number. I mean, there's a lot of data online. These carriers are getting smarter about finding the data, right? Yeah. I mean, you're not going to tell them that a brand new...
But the other side of that coin is that you could put my motor on 5 different boats and get at least 10 mile an hour variances.
Sure.
Actually, you could take my boat, I could move everything in the back of my boat to the front of my boat and slow my boat down 5 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Just put all the weight in the nose. So.
I mean, in general, the faster the boat is, the higher your rate. Right.
I don't know if I heard it or was told it or just assumed it, but kind of 60-ish is where it starts.
There's definitely a breaking point around there. I don't get any issues with anything under 60.
Okay. Which is why your boat runs 47, right?
Yeah, I think I just know what my boat runs.
So, by the way, what's your boat?
Express X21.
And what motor?
200 Mercury EFI.
There you go. Okay. Yeah. All right, so speed. And then one other off-the-cuff question that I want to come back to. Then we'll go back to what we're talking about. Remote storage.
Yeah. So
you called it mooring.
Mooring. They want a mooring place. They want to know where your boat is stored. And they also want to know where your boat is stored during hurricane season. And that we're in Dallas, Texas, not as big of a deal. If you're in Houston, Texas, it's a much bigger deal. Right? If you're in Florida, Louisiana, anywhere along the coast, obviously it makes a big difference because if your boat, I'm from Louisiana. I used to have a boat in a storage shed that was down in Delacroix, Louisiana. Well, if a hurricane comes through there, you had to go get your boat or it'd be gone. So if you're telling them, hey, my mooring location is at a place that's likely to flood, or be washed away, you're going to have a much higher rate. And they want to know where you keep it from, June through October.
So Martin and I talked about this a bunch offline, guys. And I think the general message you gave me was tell them correctly. Because what you don't want to have happen. Now, if you're at a hotel and it gets stolen, that's different because you're traveling.
Yeah.
But you don't want to tell them it's stored in your boat barn when in fact it's on a lift at Lake Louisville.
Yeah, you don't. You update the mooring place, the mooring zip code. Most people are fishing for bass in the lakes. There's no difference in saying your house or the lake where you fish.
But a lot of my guys, I got crappie guys, I got guys who keep their boats on the water. A ton of the guys keep their boats on the water.
And I don't really see a big difference in premiums on that either.
Okay.
It's really the coastal stuff that's a problem. But, in general, it's expected that your boat's on a trailer, it's movable, you have a boat shed, you might have it at your house the night before a tournament, you might have it at your friend's ranch, or you might be going somewhere else. That's okay, but every year you should make sure that, hey, if my boat shed's located at such and such address, that's what I want to have on my policy.
All right, great segue. Talk about boat trailer insurance.
Okay, so 2 things to know. When you're driving the boat behind your truck and pulling it, and the boat's on the trailer, and let's say you go around a turn and you hit another car or a light post or something with your trailer.
Gas pump.
A gas pump, right? That insurance is actually coming from your car, right? Your car's pulling the boat. And so any damage you do to others while you're towing the boat is on your car insurance, okay? Unless there's some specific exclusion, but normally there's not. And then the actual physical damage to the trailer that you would cause to the trailer is on your boat insurance. So, I damaged the gas pump. I'm liable to the gas pump from my car insurance, but if my trailer is all banged up, my fender's ruined, the coverage on my boat and trailer policy would pick that up. Now, what you need to know is how much does a trailer cost? How much is my trailer worth? A lot of times they're throwing in the coverage for the trailer, maybe $2,000, maybe $2,500. But it could be part of the amount. If you say, I've got a used bass boat and I bought it for $20,000, and you put $20,000 on the policy, that may also include the trailer. So you need to be sure that you didn't need to put, $23,000 to cover that trailer.
Good point. Yeah, and that's interesting. I actually, when I insured my most current bass cat, I had to go back and look at the invoice to see what the value of the boat is. of the trailer is, because who was it? I have a friend, and I can't even think now who it is or what happened. Oh, I know what it was. A guy got his Phoenix boat trailer stolen at the Castle Boykins ramp. And if I remember right, it cost him like $6,000 to get a replacement trailer. It was some crazy big number.
You know, going to find a replacement is not the same price as when you're getting the trailer that's already with the boat, right?
Yeah.
Because where there's an extra trailer, it's harder to find.
Well, and I mean, you put high dollar wheels and high dollar tires on these things, and they get expensive anyway, real quick.
Sure.
So guys, I don't know for sure, but I think we're about 15 minutes in. When we come back, part 2 to this, we're going to talk about the things that bothered me, and specifically what that is what is attached fishing equipment, what's personal equipment, what's
property of others.
Like, because the boat's the boat.
Yeah.
Right? But the crap in and on the boat is what worried me. So can we talk about that when we come back?
Sounds good.
All right. Stick around, guys. We'll be back with part 2 of this. This is, I don't know, it'll be in 2 days, whenever it is.